Earth had changed since first contact. The gleaming spires of New Shanghai pierced the clouds, their surfaces alive with holographic advertisements in both human and alien scripts. Quantum vehicles darted between buildings like schools of mechanical fish, their anti-gravity fields humming in harmony with the city's endless pulse. Michael Chen stood at his office window in the Terran diplomatic court, watching the sunset paint the cityscape in shades of amber and rose. At 35, he was the youngest senior ambassador to the Zekari Empire, Earth's most powerful alien ally. His success came from an uncanny ability to bridge cultural gaps, to find common ground in the vast differences between human and alien minds. But nothing in his diplomatic career had prepared him for the message now floating in his neural interface. Your presence is requested aboard the Imperial vessel, Dawn of Eternal Light. The Supreme Ambassador Zixtal brings a proposal that will change the fate of both our species. Michael's fingers traced the old jade pendant at his neck, a family heirloom that had brought him luck through countless negotiations. He'd need that luck tonight. The Zekari never made casual invitations. The transport to the Zekari ship was swift and silent. Michael watched Earth shrink beneath him, a blue marble wrapped in the lace of orbital stations and space elevators. The Dawn of Eternal Light lived up to its name, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight into rainbow cascades that danced across space. Supreme Ambassador Zixtal waited in the reception chamber. Like all Zekari, he stood nearly 9 feet tall, his iridescent exoskeleton shifting colors with his movements. 4 arms were folded in the traditional gesture of welcome, while his compound eyes studied Michael with unsettling intensity. Ambassador Chen, Zixtal's translator, rendered his clicking speech into smooth English. Your reputation precedes you, a human who truly understands the depths of alien minds. Michael bowed precisely to the correct depth for his rank. You honor me, Supreme Ambassador. Though I confess, the Zekari still hold many mysteries. Perhaps that is why you are perfect for what I propose. Zixtal gestured, and a hologram bloomed between them. It showed a Zekari female, but unlike any Michael had seen, where most of her species possessed sleek, symmetrical forms, she was asymmetric, her exoskeleton a patchwork of different textures and colors. Her eyes were mismatched, one larger than the other. This is my daughter, Kuratol. She is unique among our kind. Michael kept his diplomatic mask in place, though his mind raced. The Zekari were notorious for their dedication to physical perfection. A high-ranking official having a daughter who didn't meet those standards must be a source of tremendous social pressure. She is remarkable, Michael said carefully, noting how the irregular patterns of her exoskeleton created fascinating geometric designs. Zixtal's color shifted to deep purple surprise. You are kind to say so. Most find her appearance disturbing, but Kira's true beauty lies in her mind. She has inherited the rarest of our genetic gifts, the ability to interface directly with quantum systems. She can speak to machines as easily as you and I converse now. Michael's diplomatic mask slipped. Such abilities were theoretical, the stuff of science fiction even in this age of technological marvels. That's extraordinary. It is, and it makes her the sole heir to not just my position, but to the quantum crystal technologies that form the backbone of our empire. Zixtal's colors swirled with emotion, but our laws are clear. She must be bonded, what you would call married, before she can claim her inheritance, and no Zekari noble will have her. The pieces clicked into place in Michael's mind. Supreme Ambassador, are you suggesting a marriage of alliance? You, Michael Chen, would become my daughter's bondmate and heir to the largest technological empire in known space. Zixtal's colors stabilized to a formal blue. In return, humanity would gain access to quantum crystal technology centuries beyond your current level. It would transform your civilization overnight. Michael's mind spun with the implications. This wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was a pivot point in human history. But something didn't add up. Why me? He asked. Surely there are higher-ranking officials. Because you see beauty where others see flaws. Because you understand that true worth lies beneath the surface. Zixtal's translator couldn't quite capture the complexity of emotion in his voice. And because my daughter has watched your diplomatic work with great interest, she believes you might be capable of seeing her for who she truly is. Michael looked again at the hologram of Kuratol. Beyond the asymmetry, he could see intelligence in her eyes, a hint of gentle humor in the tilt of her head. But marriage? To an alien he'd never met. I would need to meet her, he said finally, to speak with her before making any decision. Of course, Zixtal's colors brightened. But remember, Ambassador Chen, this offer comes with a deadline. You have 1 Earth month to decide. After that, we must pursue other options. As Michael left the ship later that night, his mind was chaos. He had 30 days to decide if he would marry an alien princess, inherit an empire, and change the course of human history. The jade pendant felt heavy against his chest, a reminder of Earth, of humanity, of all that he might gain or lose. The city lights of New Shanghai sparkled below, but for once, Michael barely noticed their beauty. He was too busy wondering what other kinds of beauty he might discover in the days to come. The observation deck of the Dawn of Eternal Light offered a panoramic view of Earth's glittering orbital networks, but Michael barely noticed. His attention was fixed on the doorway, waiting for his first real meeting with Kuratol. The week since the Supreme Ambassador's proposal had passed in a blur of security briefings and cultural crash courses. A soft chiming announced her arrival. Michael turned, diplomatic training warring with natural curiosity. Kuratol entered with a grace that belied her asymmetrical form, her mismatched exoskeleton catching the starlight in unexpected ways. Up close, the patterns were even more intricate than the hologram had shown, fractals within fractals, like a living abstract painting. Ambassador Chen. Her translator rendered her voice with surprising warmth. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Not at all. Michael bowed, then straightened with a smile. And please call me Michael. This isn't exactly a formal diplomatic meeting. A ripple of color passed through her exoskeleton, amusement he'd learned. Then you must call me Kira. Though I warn you, my father would be scandalized by such informality. She moved to the viewport, her larger eye reflecting the earth below. It's beautiful, your world. So much chaos, so much variety. Not like Zikari Prime, where everything must be perfect, symmetrical, ordered. Michael heard the undercurrent of pain in her words. Sometimes the most interesting things in life come from imperfection, from breaking the patterns. Kira turned to him, her colors shifting to a deep, thoughtful blue. Is that diplomacy speaking, or do you actually believe that? Would you like to see? Michael pulled out his jade pendant. This has been in my family for 15 generations. Look closely at the stone. Kira leaned in, her compound eyes focusing. There's a flaw in the crystal structure, a natural inclusion that creates a pattern. Like a cloud formation or a mountain range, Michael finished. My ancestors could have chosen a perfect stone, but they saw beauty in this one's uniqueness. It's not a flaw, it's what makes it special. A complex swirl of colors rippled across Kira's exoskeleton. You're either the most sincere diplomat I've ever met, or the most skilled manipulator. Why not both? Michael grinned, and to his delight, Kira made a sound that his translator rendered as laughter. Come, she said suddenly. I want to show you something. She led him deeper into the ship, to a chamber he hadn't seen before. The walls were covered in shifting quantum crystal displays, each one showing different aspects of the ship's systems. Kira raised her hands, and the displays responded, swirling around her like a dance of light. This is how I see the world, she said softly. Every machine, every quantum system sings to me. Where others see cold technology, I see poetry in motion. The displays merged into a stunning abstract visualization. Mathematics made art. Even my asymmetry serves a purpose. My unusual neural patterns are what allow me to interface with systems in this way. Michael watched in awe as Kira conducted her symphony of light and data. "It's beautiful," he said simply, and meant it. "Most Zerkari see only the surface, only the ways I differ from their standards of perfection." Kira let the displays fade. They never bothered to look deeper. "Their loss," Michael said. "Though I have to ask, why agree to this arrangement? Surely you don't want to be married off to a stranger, even if it means claiming your inheritance." Kira's colors shifted to patterns he couldn't read. "Because I've watched you, Michael Chen. In every diplomatic negotiation, you look for the heart of things, the common ground beneath surface differences. You don't just solve conflicts, you understand them." She paused. "And because I'm tired of being alone." The honesty in her voice touched something in Michael. Before he could respond, alarms blared through the ship. The quantum displays flared red, and Kira's colors paled. "Something's wrong," she said, her hands moving through the data streams. "The ship's quantum core is destabilizing. If it cascades, she didn't need to finish." A quantum core breach would take out half of Earth's orbital infrastructure. "Can you stop it?" Michael asked, watching her work. "Yes, but I need direct interface access. The safety protocols." She hesitated. "It will hurt." Michael understood. "Do it. I'll stay with you." Kira pressed her hands against the crystal walls. Her exoskeleton began to glow as she merged with the ship's systems, fighting to contain the cascade. Michael watched helplessly as she writhed in pain, her colors flickering like a dying star. Finally, the alarms ceased. Kira collapsed, and Michael caught her before she hit the floor. Her exoskeleton was hot to the touch, but her colors were already beginning to stabilize. "Thank you," she whispered. "Most would have run." "I'm not most people," Michael replied, helping her up. "Though I have to wonder, was that a real emergency or a test?" Kira's colors shifted to what he was beginning to recognize as her version of a smile. "Both, perhaps. My father believes in thorough evaluation of potential bondmates." She swayed slightly. "Though I may have impressed him too well. That interface took more out of me than I expected. Then let me help you back to your quarters." Michael offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Kira took it. The texture of her exoskeleton was surprisingly warm against his skin. As they walked through the ship's crystalline corridors, Michael realized something had shifted between them. The political marriage proposal now felt secondary to the connection they'd begun to forge, a bridge between two very different kinds of beings who might, just might, see the universe in compatible ways. But as they reached Kira's quarters, a shadow passed over her colors. "Michael, there's something you should know. Something about my inheritance that my father hasn't told you." Before she could continue, her personal communicator chimed. "Tomorrow," she promised, "meet me in the quantum gardens. There's more at stake here than either of our species realizes." The quantum gardens stretched across an entire deck of the dawn of eternal light, a maze of crystalline growths that pulsed with their own inner light. Michael arrived early, watching the artificial ecosystem respond to passing crew members, its patterns shifting like thoughts made visible. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The voice came from behind him. Not Kira, but Supreme Ambassador Zixtol. "These gardens are attuned to emotional resonance. Notice how the crystals darken where you stand. They sense your unease." Michael turned, maintaining his diplomatic composure. "I was expecting to meet Kira. My daughter has been called away to address another quantum systems issue." Zixtol's colors rippled with what might have been amusement. "Convenient timing, perhaps. It allows us to speak privately." "About the inheritance you mentioned." "Ah," Zixtol's colors deepened. "She told you there was more to it." "Yes, Ambassador Chen, there is much more. Walk with me." As they moved through the garden, the crystal formations responded to Zixtol's presence, creating complex geometric patterns. "What do you know about the origin of quantum crystal technology?" "Only what's in the official records," Michael replied carefully. "Your species discovered it centuries ago, revolutionizing space travel and computing." "Not discovered, inherited." Zixtal stopped before a particularly large crystal formation, from a species far older than either of ours. We call them the predecessors. They vanished eons ago, leaving behind their technology and a warning. The crystal before them shifted, displaying ancient symbols that made Michael's eyes hurt to look at them. What kind of warning? That the technology has a price. Each generation, it requires a new guardian, one who can interface directly with the quantum network that spans our empire. Without such a guardian, the network begins to degrade. Ships fail. Colonies lose contact. Civilization itself starts to unravel. Understanding dawned. Kira, she's not just your heir. She's meant to be the next guardian. Yes, but the role requires balance. The guardian's neural patterns must be precisely imperfect, able to process both order and chaos. Kira's asymmetry, so despised by our people, makes her perfect for this task. Zixtal's colors swirled with complex emotions, but she cannot do it alone. The strain would kill her. She needs a bondmate, Michael said slowly. Someone to help carry the load. That's the real reason for this arrangement. Now you begin to understand, but not just any bondmate. We need someone whose mind can adapt to new patterns, who can see beauty in imperfection, who can bridge the gap between different forms of consciousness. Zixtal fixed in with all his compound eyes. We need you, Michael Chen. Before Michael could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship, real ones this time. The crystal gardens flashed warning patterns. Multiple quantum core breaches detected, a computerized voice announced. Cascade failure imminent in all secondary systems. Impossible, Zixtal's colors paled. Unless they've made their move already. They, who's they? The purists, a faction within our empire who believe we've become too dependent on predecessor technology. They'd rather see it destroy than continue its influence. Zixtal's translator crackled with urgency. Kira will try to stop them. She'll interface with the primary core. But you said the strain could kill her. Yes, unless. Michael didn't hesitate. Where is she? How can I help? They raced through corridors now filled with panicking crew members. The ship's crystal architecture was darkening, patterns of corruption spreading like cracks in ice. They found Kira in the primary core chamber, already connected to the quantum systems. Her exoskeleton glowed with dangerous intensity, patterns of light racing across her surface like lightning. The purists planted quantum viruses throughout the system, she gasped, her translator barely functioning. Too many to stop alone. Neural overload in 3 minutes. Michael stepped forward. Tell me what to do. Michael, no. Kira's colors flickered weakly. The interface could fry a human nervous system. You said bondmates share the load. Michael reached for her hand. So let's share it. The moment their hands touched, Michael's world exploded into light and information. He felt Kira's consciousness brush against his, then merge. Together, they dove into the quantum network, swimming through streams of data that felt like liquid mathematics. He saw what she saw, the elegant dance of quantum particles, the poetry of unified field equations, the music of probability waves. The purist's viruses appeared as discordant notes in the symphony, trying to shatter the harmony into chaos. Through their merged consciousness, Kira showed him how to help, not by fighting the chaos, but by incorporating it, transforming it into new patterns. Their combined perspectives, her quantum sight and his human adaptability, created solutions neither could have found alone. One by one, the viruses were contained, transformed, or neutralized. The ship's systems stabilized, though the effort left both of them trembling. As their consciousness separated, Michael staggered, his head pounding with the aftereffects of quantum interface. But he was smiling. That was incredible. Kira's colors were weak but jubilant. You actually did it. A human, interfacing with quantum systems. The purists said it was impossible. Impossible seems to be our specialty, Michael replied, helping her up. Zixtol stood in the doorway, his colors showing clear amazement. You've done more than stop an attack. You've proven that humans and Zekari can share the guardian bond. The purists' entire argument against your marriage has been invalidated. About that, Michael said, still holding Kira's hand. I don't need a month to decide, but I'm not saying yes because of politics or inheritance, or even saving two civilizations. He turned to Kira, whose colors had shifted to a pattern he'd never seen before. I'm saying yes because in that quantum space, I saw you, the real you, and you're the most beautiful being I've ever encountered. Kira's response was cut short by another alarm. This one was different, more urgent. Secondary quantum core overload detected, the ship's computer announced. Purist vessels approaching. Hostile intent detected. Zixtol's colors darkened. They're not going to accept this easily. The real test begins now. The command center of the Dawn of Eternal Light buzzed with tension as holographic displays showed 5 purist warships emerging from quantum space. Their designs were oddly angular, rejecting the flowing crystalline architecture typical of Zekari vessels. They're using old-tech ships, Kira explained, her colors still weak from the earlier interface. No quantum cores, no crystal tech. Makes them slower but harder for us to hack. Michael studied the tactical display, his diplomatic mind racing. They planned this well. Hit us with the viruses first, weaken our defenses, then move in for the kill. Perfect timing too, Zixtal added grimly. Most of our fleet is dealing with unexpected systems failures across 3 sectors. We're isolated. A transmission cut through their discussion. The holographic image showed a Zekari male with perfectly symmetrical features and gleaming white exoskeleton. Supreme Ambassador, he said, his translator set to a formal tone. I am Executor Vexilon of the Pure Path Movement. Surrender your ship and the abomination you call daughter, or we will be forced to take more direct action. Michael felt Kira stiffen beside him. Before anyone could respond, he stepped forward. I am Ambassador Michael Chen of Earth. As the recognized bondmate-elect of Kiretol, I invoke Article 7 of the Terran-Zekari Alliance Treaty. Any attack on this vessel will be considered an act of war against Earth. Vexilon's perfect features twisted with disgust. You would bind yourself to that twisted creature, pollute the purity of our race with human DNA. Careful, Executor, Michael's voice was diplomatic ice. That twisted creature just saved this ship and everyone on it from your quantum viruses. Care to explain to the High Council why you attempted to destroy one of our most advanced vessels? Your diplomatic games won't work here, human. Vexilon's colors shifted to aggressive patterns. The High Council will thank us for preventing this abomination. The Guardian Bond was meant for pure Zekari, not mongrel half-breeds and alien sympathizers. Kira moved to stand beside Michael, her asymmetrical features held proud. You're wrong about the Guardian Bond, Vexilon. The predecessor's warning wasn't about purity, it was about balance. Order and chaos, symmetry and asymmetry, different perspectives working in harmony. Lies. Vexilon's colors flared. You have 10 minutes to surrender, or we open fire. The transmission cut off. Immediately, the command center burst into action, crew members preparing for battle. We can't fight 5 ships, Zixtal said quietly. Not in our weakened state. We don't have to fight them. Michael turned to Kira. When we were joined in the quantum interface, I saw something. The predecessor's network. It's not just about technology, is it? It's alive somehow. Kira's colors shifted to surprised recognition. Yes, the quantum crystals aren't just tools. They're more like seeds, pieces of a vast consciousness. That's why they need guardians who can understand both order and chaos. The network itself is a balance between the two. Then maybe we can wake it up. Michael's jade pendant seemed to pulse against his chest. The purists want purity. Let's show them what real purity looks like, the pure truth of why the predecessors left their legacy. It's never been done, Kira said, but her colors showed excitement. A full awakening of the quantum network would take enormous energy, even with both of us. Not just both of us. Michael looked at Six-Tol. We'll need everyone, human and Zekari, working together. A bridge between species, just like the predecessors intended. Understanding dawned in Six-Tol's compound eyes. The garden. The quantum garden responds to all emotional resonance, not just Zekari patterns. Exactly. We can use it as a focal point, channel the combined consciousness of everyone on board through the crystal matrix. 7 minutes to impact, the ship's computer announced. They moved quickly, gathering the crew in the quantum garden. Humans and Zekari stood together among the crystal formations, which pulsed with increasing intensity as Kira explained what they needed to do. Focus your thoughts on connection, on unity, she instructed. The crystals will amplify your mental patterns, feed them into the quantum network. Michael took Kira's hand, feeling the familiar tingle of approaching interface. Around them, the garden began to sing, crystal formations resonating with a combined consciousness of two species reaching for understanding. 5 minutes to impact. The quantum interface hit them like a tidal wave of light. But this time, Michael was ready. Together, he and Kira dove deep into the network, carried by the stream of consciousness flowing from the crew. In that space between spaces, they found what they were looking for, the sleeping mind of the predecessor's legacy. It wasn't a single consciousness, but a symphony of perspectives, each one contributing to a greater whole. 3 minutes to impact. Through their merged awareness, Michael and Kira began to wake it up. The quantum crystals throughout the ship blazed with new light. In the command center, displays showed similar reactions spreading across nearby space as the network stirred from its eons-long slumber. 1 minute to impact. The purest ships were suddenly bathed in quantum light. Their pure old-tech systems couldn't shield them from the awakened network. Through the ship's sensors, Michael and Kira watched as the truth of the predecessor's vision flowed through every crystal, every quantum circuit, every piece of their ancient legacy. The light faded. The purest ships hung motionless in space. On the tactical display, their weapons powered down. A new transmission came through. Vexlon's perfect features were twisted with shock. We saw. The predecessors. They weren't. They weren't pure, Kira finished, her voice gentle despite everything. They were a collective of different species, different perspectives. Their technology wasn't meant to make us uniform. It was meant to help us grow beyond our divisions. As the immediate crisis passed, Michael felt the weight of what they discovered settle over the command center. The quantum network was awake now, and with it, centuries of hidden knowledge were becoming accessible. But in the quantum interface, he'd seen something else too, a warning that made his blood run cold. The predecessors hadn't just left their legacy as a gift. They'd left it as preparation. Something was coming, something that would test both humanity and the Zekari in ways neither species could imagine. And they had very little time to prepare. The High Council chamber on Zekari Prime glittered like the inside of a geode, its crystalline walls reflecting the tense atmosphere within. Michael stood beside Kira before the assembled council members, their perfect symmetrical forms a stark contrast to Kira's unique appearance. The events aboard the Dawn of Eternal Light had forced this emergency session, but the real challenge was only beginning. You claim the predecessors were not a single species. First Speaker Relix's colors showed clear skepticism, that our entire understanding of their legacy is flawed. We don't claim it, Michael replied. We experienced it directly through the awakened network. The predecessors were a collective of different species who discovered that diversity, a form of thought, of consciousness itself, was the key to surviving what's coming. And what exactly is coming, Ambassador Chen? Another council member demanded. You speak of threats but offer no specifics. Kira stepped forward, her exoskeleton shifting with patterns of urgency. The quantum network showed us fragments, echoes of what the predecessors faced. They called it the void, a force that devours consciousness itself, that reduces all complexity to uniform nothing. The chamber erupted in arguing clicks and color changes. Michael waited for the chaos to subside before continuing. The predecessors didn't just leave us their technology, they left us a warning and a way to prepare. But we can only face this threat together, humans, Zikari, and any other species willing to embrace true unity. Unity? Vexilon's voice cut through the chamber. The purest leader had been granted temporary amnesty to attend this session. You mean corruption, dilution of our pure form? No, Kira's voice carried new authority, earned in quantum fire, evolution, growth, the very things the predecessors achieved by combining their different perspectives. Look at what Michael and I accomplished together, awakening the network, accessing knowledge that had been dormant for eons. She raised her hands, and the chamber's crystal walls responded, displaying complex quantum equations that made several council members' colors pale. My asymmetry isn't a flaw, it's an adaptation. The human capacity for chaos isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone. A deep resonance suddenly filled the chamber. The quantum crystals began to pulse with familiar light. Michael felt Kira's consciousness brush against his through their strengthened bond. The network, she whispered, it's showing them. Every Zikari in the chamber went rigid as the quantum consciousness flowed through them. Michael watched their colors shift through patterns he'd never seen before as they experienced firsthand what he and Kira had discovered. When the light faded, the chamber was silent. First speaker, Relix's perfect symmetry seemed less important now, overshadowed by the weight of revelation. The void, Relix said quietly. It's not just coming. It's already here, isn't it? In the dark spaces between stars. Yes, Michael confirmed. The predecessors fought it to a standstill, but couldn't defeat it completely. They seeded their quantum technology across the galaxy, waiting for species who could evolve enough to use it, to finish what they started. But we're not ready, Kira added. Not while we cling to artificial notions of purity and perfection. The void feeds on uniformity, on the reduction of complexity to simplicity. Our differences, our imperfections, they're our greatest weapon against it. Vexilon stood, his perfect features troubled. Even if what you say is true, how can we possibly prepare? The void is unlike anything we've ever faced. Not alone, Michael said, but together. He took Kira's hand, feeling the familiar surge of their combined consciousness. When humans and Zikari work as one, we can wake up 1,000-year-old quantum networks. Imagine what we could do with more species, more perspectives, more forms of consciousness working in harmony. The chamber's crystals pulsed in agreement, and Michael felt a surge of hope. But through his bond with Kira, he sensed her worry. There was something she hadn't told the council yet, something she'd seen in the deepest layers of the quantum network. There's more, she said finally, her colors shifting to patterns of deep concern. The void, it has servants. Species it's already consumed and converted. They appear normal at first, but they spread uniformity like a virus, preparing worlds for the void's consumption. New images appeared on the crystal walls, ships of impossible geometries, beings that hurt the eye to look at, worlds reduced to perfect, empty spheres of nothingness. How long? First speaker Relix demanded. Months, maybe weeks, Michael answered. They're already probing the edges of both our territories, but they're avoiding direct contact because they're afraid. Afraid of what? Of this. Kira gestured, and the crystals showed a new image, a double helix of human DNA intertwined with the complex molecular structure of Zikari genetics, quantum patterns dancing between them. Of what happens when different forms of consciousness learn to work together. Of the power that comes from embracing complexity instead of reducing it. The marriage bond, Vexilon whispered, his perfect features showing unexpected understanding. It was never about inheritance or politics. It was preparation for war. Not just war, Michael corrected. Evolution, revolution. The next step in both our species' development, he looked at Kira, seeing not imperfection but possibility. The predecessors knew that only species who could overcome their fears of difference, who could find beauty in imperfection, would be strong enough to face the void. The council chamber hummed with tension as the full implications sank in. Everything was about to change: social structures, political alliances, the very nature of both their civilizations. But through his quantum bond with Kira, Michael felt something else too, a gathering storm of consciousness as the awakened network began reaching out to other worlds, other species, drawing them together against the coming darkness. The revolution of the heart was beginning. The only question was, would it happen fast enough? The quantum gardens of New Shanghai stretched to the horizon. Crystalline growths merged seamlessly with Earth's native flora, a living symbol of the revolution that had transformed both worlds in the months since the void's discovery. Michael stood at the heart of it all, his hand intertwined with Kira's, their consciousness resonating with the vast network that now connected a dozen species across the galaxy. "They're coming," Kira whispered, her asymmetrical form casting prismatic patterns in the morning light. "The void's servants. I can feel them at the edge of our space." Through their shared quantum bond, Michael sensed it too, a terrible emptiness approaching, like holes being punched in the fabric of reality. The early warning systems they'd established with their new allies were lighting up across 3 sectors. How many ships? Thousands. Kira's colors shifted to deep concern. But that's not the worst part. "Show him," she commanded the garden's crystals. A holographic display materialized, showing the enemy fleet. The ships were identical, perfect spheres of absolute darkness that seemed to absorb both light and hope. But it was their formation that made Michael's blood run cold. They were arranging themselves into a vast geometric pattern. "A consciousness nullification array," explained a new voice. Vexlon approached, his once perfect symmetry now deliberately altered with quantum crystal implants. The former purist leader had become one of their strongest allies after experiencing the truth of the predecessor's vision. When completed, it will create a wave of pure uniformity, stripping away all complexity, all uniqueness, all consciousness itself. "How long?" Michael asked, though he already knew the answer through the quantum network. 6 hours until the array is complete, Kira confirmed. "After that, everything we've built, everything we've become, will be reduced to nothing." Michael squeezed her hand, feeling the strength of their bond pulse through the quantum field. "Then we stick to the plan. Are the other species in position?" A series of acknowledgements flowed through the network. The Meridians, with their gaseous forms and time-dilated consciousness. The crystalline Axleth, who experienced reality as pure mathematics. The silicon-based Vor, whose hive mind had embraced chaos as a path to evolution. All of them, once separated by fear and difference, now united by the predecessor's legacy. "What we're attempting has never been done," Vexlon warned. Linking so many different forms of consciousness through the quantum network, it could tear reality apart. "Reality is already being torn apart," Michael replied. "At least this way we tear it on our terms." He looked at Kira, seeing in her asymmetrical beauty everything that made life worth preserving: complexity, adaptation, the endless dance of order and chaos that gave rise to consciousness itself. "Ready?" he asked. Kira's colors shifted to patterns of determination mixed with love. "Always." They began. Through the quantum gardens, through the vast network that now spanned known space, consciousness began to flow. Not merged, not uniform, but harmonizing, each species contributing its unique perspective to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Michael felt his mind expand as awareness cascaded through the link. He experienced reality through compound eyes and gaseous sensors, through crystalline lattices and silicon networks. Each new perspective added depth, complexity, understanding. The void's servants sensed the building power. Their perfect spheres began to pulse with anti-light, attempting to complete their nullification array ahead of schedule. The very fabric of space-time groaned under the competing forces. Now, Kira's voice echoed through all forms of consciousness. Everyone, push through the quantum barrier. Show them what true unity looks like. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as 12 species, 12 forms of consciousness, pushed as one. The quantum network blazed with impossible light. In that moment, Michael understood what the predecessors had been working toward all along. Not uniformity, but harmony. Not the absence of chaos, but its integration into a greater order. Not the elimination of difference, but its celebration as the source of all evolution. The light reached out, touched the void's servants, and transformed them. Their perfect spheres cracked, revealing the trapped consciousness within. Ages ago, they had surrendered to uniformity out of fear of difference. Now, faced with the power of true unity, that uniformity shattered. The nullification array collapsed. The void's servants, freed from their prison of perfection, began to remember who they had been. Through the quantum network, Michael felt their awakening, felt complexity and consciousness flooding back into the empty spaces. But the victory came with a price. The network, Kira gasped. It's overloading. Too many consciousnesses, too much complexity all at once. Michael felt it too, the quantum crystals struggling to contain the vast flood of awakened minds. We need to stabilize it, all of us working together. Through their bond, through the connection that had started everything, Michael and Kira began to weave order from chaos. The other species joined in, each contributing their unique understanding. Slowly, gradually, the quantum network stabilized into new patterns, more complex and beautiful than anything the predecessors had imagined. When it was over, when the light faded and consciousness settled into its new configuration, the galaxy had changed. The void's servants were free, their uniform perfection replaced by restored individuality. The quantum network had evolved, becoming a bridge not just between species, but between different states of being. And in the quantum gardens of New Shanghai, Michael looked at his alien wife with eyes that could now see all forms of beauty. What happens now? He asked, though the network was already showing him glimpses of possibility. Kira's colors danced with joy and anticipation. Now we evolve, all of us together. The predecessors didn't just leave us technology, they left us a path forward, a way to grow beyond what any single species could become alone. She gestured at the garden, where quantum crystals and earth plants had begun growing into entirely new forms, neither purely one nor the other, but something gloriously unique. Look, she said softly, it's already beginning. Above them, the stars seemed to shine with new light, not uniform, not perfect, but complex and alive with possibility. The revolution wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But through their quantum bond, through the vast network of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy, Michael and Kira knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, they would face it together. Not as human and Zekari, not as perfect or imperfect, but as two beings who had learned to see beauty in difference and strength in unity. The true inheritance, it turned out, wasn't wealth or power or even technology. It was the understanding that love, real love, could bridge any gap, heal any divide, and transform even the darkest void into light. The end.